Do you love chenille or plushy yarns and wish there was a worsted weight option for chenille yarns so you could get all those details you want to put into your toy without it turning out to be huge? Well, today we're going to be looking at one of those new options, which is called a Toucan Fine from Hobbii Yarn. And I'm going to be sharing my review of Toucan Fine with you. And based on some of the questions that I received on social media, we're also going to be taking a look at this yarn in comparison to some other plushy yarns that are available from Hobbii Yarns as well. So we're going to be comparing the Toucan Fine to the initial release of Toucan yarn from Hobbii. We'll also be looking at Honey Bunny and Baby Snuggles as well. You'll see this yarn worked up in a swatch. We'll talk about frogging this yarn, and you'll see it worked up in a crochet toy as well. So if you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. It's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and as I've mentioned, we are going to be taking a look at Toucan Fine yarn. Now, this is a worsted weight plush yarn that just was released a few weeks ago from Hobbii Yarns, and it is the little sister of the Hobbii Toucan, which is a super bulky weight yarn. So we'll be talking about the Toucan here in a moment. So the Toucan Fine, it comes in these 100 gram balls, and they are 100% polyester, and there are 180 meters or 196 yards to a ball of this yarn. The recommended needle size, if you're a knitter, is 5 millimeter or US 8, and they recommend a 6 millimeter or J crochet hook for crocheters. The gauge information given here for a 4x4 inch swatch is 11 stitches by 13 rows in single crochet and 12 stitches by 25 rows in the knit stitch. Now, if you want to see more information for like the care instructions, you can find that over on the written version of this review over on my blog, theloopylamb.com. I've linked to that in the description box for you below. Now, I did some swatching with this yarn, and I used this light purple color. They don't give you colors names on these ball bands, which I wish they did, but it's color 12 if anyone cares. And I used this 5 millimeter H crochet hook for this swatch. Now, I think that a 5 millimeter is probably, maybe a little too small for it. I think a 5.5 millimeter would be my personal preference. A 6 millimeter would be too large for my personal tension and gauge, because I would start to get larger holes in my fabric. Overall, though, the 5 millimeter did perform well with this yarn. It was pleasant to work with, and I did a few rows each of the basic crochet stitches. So I've got a few rows here of single crochet, half double crochet, and some double crochet stitches as well. Now, I also made a crochet toy with this. This is my Octo Ollie no-sew amigurumi octopus pattern, and it uses another worsted weight chenille yarn. And so I wanted to see how this compared to that. Now, this was a little denser and thicker than the other worsted weight yarn that was used in that pattern, so it did turn out to be a slightly bigger toy. However, the density that it had over the other yarn does create a more solid fabric for amigurumi, so I did really like it for that. So let's talk about this yarn in comparison to the initial Toucan. So as you can see, we've got two different colors of the different Toucan yarns here, and this is a strand of the Toucan Fine versus a strand of the regular Toucan, and there is a significant weight difference between the two. The Toucan yarn, the initial one, almost leans more towards a bulky 5 for me over a super bulky, and I did have to use a smaller hook size when I did use the just regular Toucan in some of my designs that I've worked on with this yarn. Now, in terms of strength and durability, I did find that the fine yarn was more durable than the super bulky. And you can see here that I've had some warming. And if you're not familiar with the term warming, warming is where the fibers on your yarn tend to move up and down on the core strand here and creates these kind of bald spots. And the severity of the bald spots depends on the yarn and what's happened to it. Now, when I was frogging the yarn, and I've got a little clip here to show you that there is some worming that happens, but not as much. It really truly depends on how tight your stitches are. When I'm frogging these double crochet stitches, I was able to get through over a whole row of double crochet stitches being frogged before I started to encounter some of that worming. So I did think that this was a little bit more durable than the initial toucan. And the strand itself was harder to break. So when I get these chenille yarns, one of the first things I do is I grab the end of one of the balls and I pull on both sides of the strand to see how much strength it takes for me to break that strand. The harder it is for me to pull on and break that strand, the more durable the yarn ultimately ends up being. And this did take a lot more strength to break than the super bulky. Now, the yarn is very soft, but it's not as soft as some of the other Hobbii yarns that are available. And now some of that could be due to the fact that it is a thinner yarn strand, so there are going to be shorter fibers in the yarn strand. But when we look at these other 3 yarns that we've got from Hobbii, we've got the toucan, the honey bunny here in the white, and the baby Snuggles. In terms of softness, if you've tried any of these other ones, honey bunny is I'd say probably the winner in terms of softness. Baby Snuggles is also quite soft. So it's really between the two, if you're going for softness in your yarn, you can't go wrong with either one of these. Now, the toucan is a little softer than the Toucan Fine. However, for me, my personal preference is to go for the durability over the softness. Now, for color selection, there are far more colors available in the super bulky than the fine. I think there's only 16 colors available right now in the Toucan Fine. So I definitely would use this yarn again, but I would probably wait to see if they came out with more colors, because there weren't a ton that really spoke to me. And you can see I've got some of the other colors up here, and they do tend to either be like bright, bold colors of like tropical birds, because they do mention that, hence the name toucan on their site. But a lot of them are more these neutrals here that we've got here on my right. In terms of durability versus the honey bunny and the baby Snuggles, the honey bunny I find worms a lot more easily than the fine, and baby Snuggles, I didn't really have any issues with that worming, but it does have a more velvety feel than this, because they do talk about on the Hobbii website to add a touch of velvet to your stash with this yarn. And this doesn't really give me that luxury velvety feel that something like the baby Snuggles here does. One thing to keep in mind that I'd recommend when you're using this yarn is that when you do cut your yarn tails, that you leave it a little bit of extra yarn for your yarn tails, because as soon as you snip this yarn, I don't know if you can see it here, but there's you can see the core strand here, this white bit here. The fibers instantly kind of just fluff off the end of the yarn as soon as you cut it. And the longer it's left, the more these fibers will just kind of slide off. So make sure that you're leaving a little bit of an extra yarn tail. And if you are having this worming at the end of your strand, I do recommend tying a knot in the end. Some folks will recommend that you can melt the end with a lighter. If you do that, just be careful not to burn yourself or melt the fiber too much. All right, and that's it. That's my review of Hobbii Toucan Fine. If you have any questions about this yarn, I'd love to hear from you and try to help you if I can. And if you have any experience using this yarn, I would love to hear from you and hear what you made with this yarn. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com, where I've got hundreds of free crochet patterns and step-by-step video tutorials. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.